Communism is far more noble than capitalism. It's the way of the future. State people who have never experienced the dire effects that it has on its citizens. A lot of people in the United States don't know how lucky they are to have been born in a land with freedom and opportunities, freedom of speech, liberty, and the left is trying to take it away. They want some form of communism. There are communist agitators who have never experienced what it's actually like to live in such places. You don't know what it's like to live in an area where you are not provided freedom of speech, where if you say the wrong thing, you will be literally killed or hauled off into a gulag and tortured. When you actually meet people that have had this experience, as I have in the Middle East, as I have in Asia, you will get different ideas about how fortunate you are to be born American. And when you talk about communism, when you actually see the effects that it's had on the people. I mean, you can go to the Soviet Union and see the charred faces, the etched faces full of frowns of people there who were subjected in their youth to communism and their outlook on life and how sad it all is. And yes, it is partially a function of weather that exists. But nevertheless, if you think that growing up in an age where you got one pair of shoes every few years if you were lucky, and that you grew up most of the time in bare feet until the age of 6 when you got your first pair of shoes, yes, this is what it was like for some people living under the Iron Curtain. You can go today and to Cambodia, and they have what are the killing fields, because many people don't know this, but Cambodia executed nearly a third of its population during the Khmer Rouge. And you can go to these fields and you can see the bones, you can see the skulls that are arranged, and you can literally pick bone fragments off the ground from people that died all that time ago. Not died, killed. You can see the trees where they smashed in babies' heads in order to save bullets. This is the despotic nature of that regime. And the ethos, the theory behind it was that we are going to start anew and everybody will be equal. The magical word of equity, at the lowest common denominator, of course, on a miserable playing field. And you know what communism has brought? It's brought about one of the cheapest countries in the world to live, because these people have nothing, and therefore for a little, just a little, they will work all day. As opposed to the United States, where we have far higher wages, where the quality of life is exponentially better because we haven't destroyed everything. And if you take a look at what Antifa and these communist rabble-rousers are doing, that's exactly what they are trying to do. They are trying to create misery for everybody, destroying everything, destroying businesses, and the district attorneys in some areas are absolutely allowing this to take place. It's a failed ideology, and I just encourage everybody out there to travel to Cambodia and outside of Phnom Penh to go to the killing fields and pick these bone fragments off the ground and see if you are not moved and affected as you hear the tales from the guides that will tell you what took place there. When you see it and touch it with your own physical hands, when you see the bones on display, the skulls, the mass numbers of people that were absolutely murdered, and for what? For equity. This is what equity leads to. Not equality of opportunity. That is not only noble, but useful for society. But equity, meaning that we are all the same. You cannot legislate the fact that some people are willing to work harder for others and thus garner more for themselves. And in turn, they have to produce something that benefits others. This is capitalism. Communism just levels, the theory is that it will level everything out at the expense of joy, at the expense of life, at the expense of innovation. Humans do not progress under communism. So for those of you who want communism to rise once again, it is because of your inexperience. And I just urge you kindly, go to these areas, go to Russia, go to the areas that have experienced communism and see if life is as good as in the West, where it's been kept at bay. Go again to Cambodia and pick those bone fragments off the ground and see if you're not moved. See if you don't change your mind. Peace and blessings to everybody out there. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all notifications. Share the video with friends, especially your communist ones, because at least give them an alternative viewpoint. Peace out, everybody.